Welcome back to the Oracle. We predict the news before it happens. I'm Max Keiser with Stacey Herbert and our guests Leo Johnson and Andy Zaltzman. Stacey, the world wants to know if China will lead us out of this economic depression. U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is over in East Asia calling for a coordinated economic response. Unfortunately for Hillary, not only did Japan just announce a 12.7% decline in GDP, but its finance minister had to resign after this appearance at the G7 summit. Yeah, he's plastered. Apparently he was hammered.
Oh, I'm sorry, he didn't seem to me to be drunk at all. He looked absolutely reasonable. He seemed to be there. He was awake for most of it. He was in absolutely good shape. Have you ever seen a Japanese person drunk? How would you know?
He was choosing his words very carefully, I'll say that.
Plus, who did the IMF just go to for a $200 billion loan?
Exactly.
Japan.
Sure.
So give the guy some respect.
Sure.
Back off.
And the Japanese yen is skyrocketing. Stacey, let's take a look at the headlines.
Well, Confucian reigns in China.
Really?
Love, I like that.
China's economy shows signs of recovery on stimulus. Apparently they're growing by 6.6%, according to the Bloomberg article. Yeah. And a headline from the World Socialist Worker, in honor of us all being socialists, of course. Asia's export economies in free fall.
Huh? Well, it's total contradiction. One says up, one says down. Stacey, what are the signs of recovery?
Well, Max, the value of loans, new loans in January doubled on last year in China. So, you know, this is a different system from the socialism in America in that these, the bankers there actually doubled their loans in the last year. So, however, the other signs are that 30% of this money actually went into the Shanghai Stock Exchange, which is up 30% since January 1.
Oh, so they're just borrowing money easily, but then dumping it into speculative Shanghai stocks.
That sounds exactly like the U.S.
Well, yeah, it's good to see they're learning from our mistakes.
They're learning?
Well, this could be the bubble that takes the global economy out of its malaise. Andy Zaltzman, what's going on here?
Well, relative to us, China is going up, although that could still mean it is in free fall. I guess if you've got two parachutists free falling next to each other at the same time, and one's had a bigger lunch than the other, then it's going to appear to be free falling more freely and fallier.
But on this question of whether or not China is growing or contracting, we're going to consult with a real doctor in this field, Dr. Copper. Are you familiar with Dr. Copper?
No.
Dr. Copper is the base metal or industrial metal with a PhD. Dr. Copper, as you may or may not know out there, listening to and watching The Oracle, is that news tends to precede price, and sometimes price precedes news. And in this case, Dr. Copper, which is the chart of the copper price, shows a little bit of growth there at the tail end. This is indicating that the global economy is starting to expand because China, being a huge buyer of industrial metals like copper, it appears as though we're seeing a little bit of growth. The resolution, therefore, of whether or not China growing or not growing could be seen in this chart by our old friend, Dr. Copper. Leo Johnson, do you buy that?
No, I don't, frankly. I think you look at this chart, a couple of things spring to mind. One is this actually supply side driven? Are the large mining companies shutting down production of copper because they think there isn't going to be demand? Two, is this speculators? And my third thought is, are you actually measuring the right thing? There's a great quote from actually Adair Turner, chair of the FSA, who says growth needs to be dethroned. Should a thought-leading program like yours be measuring copper indexes, or should be looking at more interesting indexes like happiness, welfare? Are we delivering stuff to societies that actually matter rather than speculation of copper price?
Stacey, Leo Johnson's gone insane. What's the other chart here? Let's bring it back to nuts and bolts and numbers.
Well, that was the price of copper. Here's the stock levels. So this is actual supply of copper in the London warehouses. And as you see, it's at a 5-year high by twice as much as the previous high of the past 5 years. So supply and demand typically would mean the price would go down.
Right.
It's at an all-time high, and yet the price is still going up. So
Once again, conflict in the Bermuda Triangle of the global economy. Dials are spinning in opposite directions. Nobody knows exactly whether we're upside down, right side up, whether to add money, whether we're socialists, whether we're capitalists, and nobody seems quite sure. Andy, can China save us?
I think there's a different way around this, and that is that we can take China down with us. And I think that's probably the way that we want to look at it. The whole world economy is based on us buying stuff we don't need.
We're heading for a prediction. It's time now for the Oracle to predict if China, will China lead us out of this economic depression? Tell us, Oracle, answer our question. Is China recovering or crashing? Well, number one, Shanghai Stock Exchange crashes 21% in one day. Number two, Dr. Copper is sued for malpractice as global economy continues to contract. Copper down 6% on Tuesday. Dr. Copper appears to be on Ritalin.